Oh, would you look at that? A bunch of premium fodder. This is very exciting, folks. But is it worth it?
Let the lesson begin.
What's up, guys? Akariss here, bringing you another Fire Emblem Heroes video. Today's is the update notification. Now, I know the first thing on your mind is, oh my god, new pats, and where should I save for, how should I use them? I'm in the process of compiling the fodder and analyzing every single path as I normally do, like the previous years. So I think I'll try to get that video done even today, or rather later, much later, yeah, a couple of hours later in the day. Try to get that out as soon as I can for you guys before the update even hits, since we know what the paths are, and that can really help quite a few of you. Fodder is looking pretty spicy. These codes and paths obviously get a lot better, but I'll talk about it when we get into this update notification and the bulk of it, and of course the actual analysis of that codes video itself. Either way, I'm pretty excited about it, as I'm sure most of you probably are as well. But let's talk about this update notification. Before I do though, I'm going to ask that you smash the like button and sub. Always helps me out and lets me know whether you guys like this video or not. It's really as simple as that. It's also F2P, doesn't require much commitment. Either way, if you enjoy the content I do and you want to support what I do, it means a lot if you choose to do so. Then maybe consider the Patreon description below. I don't sponsor these videos by anyone other than you guys. You guys are the ones that sponsor these videos and make them happen. Nothing else. Thank you guys. Alright, let's talk about this update notification. So, in this particular one, we start off with Summoner Duels. Now, Summoner Duels update here, there are quite a few of them. The first one to start out is this Battle ID for replay. This actually lets you just watch anyone else's replays as long as you get the Battle ID from them. This is kind of good in my opinion, because I don't know how long the Battle IDs save. It doesn't necessarily state whether it's a permanent thing, like it's just in their database. I hope it is, because these replays do obviously fall off. Like over time, they don't show up anymore. So in this text blurb, I'm not reading anything that says that it lasts forever. If you guys think that I might have missed it in the text, and feel free to let me know in the comments below. But either way, my concern on this one is, can your replays actually have permanence and something you can review, let's say a year from now? Because if you can, then this is actually really good for being able to compile, let's say, some really good games and then sharing those, let's say, on content creation, or just as an example to learn from. So I do hope the battle IDs do stay, and it's not just a temporary thing. It's a great resource to help out players, or just watch some good content, I suppose, and be able to commentate over it. The replay system in Summoner Duels is actually quite good, and I have used it quite a bit to review my games here and there. So yeah, this is a nice addition. It's nice that you can share it with your friends, and of course the learning opportunity being there is a great boon if you ask me. Now, if we do some other changes that they're making here, specifically the highest glory thing, it says if you reach the highest glory, this is in regards to Summoner Duels S and the first place thing, if you reach the highest glory at the end of the event, you'll be guaranteed to be in first place regardless of how many wins or losses you have. I already thought this was the case, so I'm not really sure what this means. Maybe if you have a better record, you were above someone else or something, but I felt like during the first Summoner Duels S, like everyone was first place regardless of your wins and losses. So I don't really understand exactly what that means. I'm assuming it's just you get your first place rewards. I don't get it. I feel like this was already a thing, but whatever. It applies to Summoner Duels S and Summoner Duels R. The Summoner Duels S glory cap increases every time, so they want to progressively let people climb as opposed to just getting up to 7,300 on the first time, like SDR, which really promoted a sort of grind. Whereas with SDS, you kind of feel a little bit gated, and I think that's a good thing, to not like pressure people to just keep playing if you get a good streak, because that can cause a bit of burnout. So this progressive upgrade on your glory system is great. They are adding new captain skills, and as we can see here, they're going to be, if captain initiates combat, can follow up before foe can counterattack. So basically giving the Jomke Uller desperation effect to everyone now. this is already very powerful. It lets you absolutely demolish a lot of problem matchups you otherwise couldn't, especially if you have like null follow-up or some sort of brave enabler like Bridal Catria. On top of that, they also have a null guard, null special charge type effect on it. So you're going to... This is basically the player phase nuker's dream captain skill. It does require your captain to be in danger though, so I feel like this can be potentially bad, but I could see somebody like Eitri really taking super advantage of something like Flash of Steel and will let you get through pretty much any save tanks in the game. Like nothing's really going to be able to deal with this. There's not going to be many. Because if you use stuff like damage piercing, like you can't use enough deflect skills and damage reduction to get through something that's nullifying guard specials, that's giving desperations, that can possibly enable Bridal Catria kind of stuff. There's just so much going on that Flash of Steel is obviously intended to be some super burst type of effect, and I could see it actually being pretty good as a result of that. Now the second one here, Rallying Cry, is at the start of turns 2 to 5, you get 6 to all stats for the captain and allies within 2 spaces for 1 turn. I don't feel like this one is as good, especially since it has a turn 2 to 5 condition. A lot of action happens in turn 1 of Summoner Duels type gameplay, so waiting until turn 2 before you can start going is and it's also going to be extremely weak to panic, sudden panic type effects, which are already in abundance if you ask me. A lot of characters already have a lot of self-buff type mechanics that they don't need this, but it could be good for bonus doubler type teams or just units in general who really benefit from buffs, such as Dogger, NY Dogger, and of course Note. But again, weak to panic kind of makes that kind of and turn 2 being the initial part is kind of So yeah, anyways, these skills are not coming up in the current SDR rotation, and they are just going to show up, I guess, in the next SDS rotation, plus, of course, Summoner Duels. Now, they're pretty much increasing favor level to 1700, as it's shown up here. This is expected. I think they're basically just upgrading the favor level of 100 every single update, and this gives a kind of progressive grind to it. You can kind of catch up with it, or you can do it at your own pace. Like, for example, I've been at 1000 favor in OG Summoner Duels for quite a while, and I strictly use the mode to practice for SDS and SDR, so over time, I'm going to like get up to that higher favor cap anyways. I like to experiment with different captains and different teams, so this is great that they just kind of slowly add to the favor level every single time, as opposed to just like, here's 2000, we went from 1000 to 2000. I mean, that wouldn't be too great, so I'm glad that they at least do it this way. Alright, now the the meat of the update. Now this was fairly predictable, as of course the 2 previous years they were out in March. Again, I'm going to do a bigger analysis on this and look at the fodder in detail, and of course advise potentially where the best paths are. I make great use of these paths myself. If I actually was to share it with you guys, I can do that right now actually. I get a lot of fodder from these paths. They are so great to basically aim towards, not have to worry about gacha, and just pick up all this delicious good stuff like Sturdy Impact, Guard Bearing, the double rallies, fortune bows, gaps, sabo attacks. You know, I got a merge on Bridal Fjorm here. You got the attack speed. Like the amount of amazing type of stuff you pick up from codes is such a great progression system that rewards you for patience and playing over a long period of time. And I just love like this sort of system, so of course I'm a big promoter of that idea. Same idea here, of course. We have like a bunch of codes, bunch of stuff. Honestly, the first year wasn't that impressive. Second year was pretty good, and now the third year coming up is even better. So it's exciting, and I'm definitely gonna try to promote that excitement by doing a sort of deep dive into this in the upcoming video. Nonetheless, if I was to take a quick look at this and it just like be, you know, like the things that stand out right away are going to be, first of all, Brave Gatekeeper and Brave Marth are at the end of paths, and since they were recent releases, is a bit of a surprise. But they're actually the less popular and less meta-relevant type of Brave heroes, as opposed to Marianne and Erica, which are obviously far better, at least in the current game. So it's funny to see them there, and that could be a good way to get merges if they are your favorites. Marth stands out as being a super fodder type of character who has distant pressure and spurn and even tempest, so he's like jam-packed with fodder. Gatekeeper is no slouch either, as he has joint drive defense and close reversal, and they're basically giving those close counter and premium distant counter skills at the end of the paths, which is great. Notably as well, at the end of the paths, we have far save on Henriette on the Thracia path here, and we have an AR near save on the Awakening Fates path. Those are both really good pickups. If you were missing any of the near or far saves yet, then this is great to consider saving up for these paths and finally get that particular strategy into your roster. Just as a reference, I don't even have a single near save in my barracks yet, so if I don't, by the time I get 6,000 path 3 codes, then yes, I'm likely going to go through the near save path, because I need to kind of just expand my roster and be able to cover those roles pretty well. There's just a lot of range tanks that I would want to build, and of course with near save I'd be able to do that much more effectively than old school close counter type gameplay. Anyways, that doesn't mean that those these 4 paths that I mentioned so far are lacking at all, because the Sacred Stones path has a double trace at the end in the form of AD far trace and SR far trace between Shanna and La Rochelle. So that you get double trace on this path, and on the Path of Radiance Radiant Dawn path, you have a combination of Tannin Baton, Odd Recovery from Sephron in the middle, and then you have Lethality with times Pulse, no follow-ups, 30 impact on Volk. I'm surprised to even see that there, considering how recently he was released. And then at the end, you actually have the SD Near Trace and Stall Ploy, but who cares about Stall Ploy, with Naysala at the end. So these are some super jam-packed, really good skills to round out your main characters. It's just wow. But the thing is, a lot of the good stuff doesn't even begin near the end. You can get a lot of good stuff even near the beginning of these paths. I'd say the first ones are usually a dud. There's nothing really impressive from the first one. I guess consider them free weapons, right? So here Casper is Victor Fish at 5-star and bonus doubler, for example, or a free blue tome from either Lewin or Juno here. And then we have Berkut again coming with just these inheritable free 5-star weapons, and the beasts unfortunately are just not really going to have much. I believe he has Snag and Sabotage potentially. I genuinely forgot what Vika has. I think it was, let's see, I think it was a Sabotage. Anyways, so obviously the first one's pretty lacking, but some of the good stuff even begins as soon as the second character, with Nyx having a level 4 solo. We have attack speed ideal 4 off of Luis, which chains in from attack speed ideal 3. But anyways, this goes on. There's a lot of good stuff to be picked up here, either for merge reasons or just trace and save skills finally being available through these codes. There is Odd Tempest as well, notably on Dimitri on 3 houses and Dragon Wall on Rhea. It's going to be really difficult to decide where you want to go here, but I think looking at your own barracks and trying to round out the strategies or skills that really round out your main characters is the way to go about this. But anyways, I'm going to cover that in a more detailed analysis coming up. This is just a first look at it, and it is impressive, to say the least. I am stoked for it, absolutely. If you don't understand how the code system works from the last year, it's the same way. Basically, your code 1 and code 2s cannot be used for the latest one. So you can't use a code 1s to, use them for code 3, and code 2 can't be for 3, and so forth. You can't go up on the ladder, you can only go down. What that means is if you want to get something from the second path, and you don't have enough codes, then it's going to use the ones from your path 3 codes. This kind of encourages that the newer fodder is better, and you should be using your newer codes for the newer stuff. And generally that holds true. It's not always the case, as there is still stuff from the first path, for example, Disarm Trap, notably on Spring Pala being really good, or Close Counter, I believe, on Summer Dancer Xander. So there's still going to be stuff from the older paths that you might want to consider spending the newer codes on, but generally speaking, the newer is better, and you shouldn't do this unless you really, really, really want some older fodder or a merge, or just some specific reason. But pretty much this puts everyone on equal footing. There is no one who's saved from the previous years and is able to just pick up everything on the new paths. Okay, next up is our remix on Azura, and only on Azura. So some people thought Legendary Alm would get a remix and refine. Unfortunately, that's not happening yet. He probably is on the remix banner, but he's not getting his remix, refine, and such just yet. Now, Azura's remix on Grey Waves 2 is actually pretty tame, in my opinion, meaning that it's not game-breaking. Thankfully, it already was really good, and all it's really adding to the table here is Null Panic. So that's it. The target is going to get Null Panic, plus all the other effects of Grey Waves, which were the extra movement, and Prayer Wheel gives the extra stats. Now, it actually only applies to infantry and flying on top of that. So it's not even working on like calves or armored. But the thing is, Null Panic is a great upgrade regardless. It's not some outrageous effect where now everyone gets movement, like even calves or something. They could have gone pretty crazy with this effect, but thankfully it's not that. It's just Null Panic on infantry and flying, but that is still very good. The reason this is so good is because usually Azura sometimes gave buffs where you didn't want to get those buffs, like the visible buffs, because the enemy players might have used something like Panic Manner or Sudden Panic, or just Panic in general to deal with it. So this is a great addition for something like air defense, but I think where it might stand out quite a lot is actually Summoner Duels, where there is a good usage of Sudden Panic and panic effects in general. So by being able to buff up a unit that really does rely on their buffs, I think a good example of this could be someone like Tiki. I use Legendary Tiki, so I'm just going to use her as an example. She really does depend on the like defense and res buff, so that her Divine Mist weapon is activated, and by being able to, well, okay, this is a terrible example because Null Panic can only be used on infantry and flying. I think a better partner for Tiki would likely be Ashera. She also provides Null Panic. I'm going to use someone else. Any infantry or flying ally that depends totally on buffs. Let's use NY Dogger this time to actually fit the flying ally example. So Dogger can now move 3 spaces, enable Pathfinder on your other units, and then have Null Panic to make sure she's getting as much of that advantage through her weapon as possible. You know, my first thought is always like Tiki, so I just had to use Tiki as an example. How Null Panic is actually quite good for her, but we'll just say Ashera is a better partner there. Anyways, for new skills, she doesn't upgrade Redual Flying 3 to 4. That would have been nice, but unfortunately, or fortunately for you, it's attack speed push 4, which is now giving her some more combat viability. This is a nice addition, if you ask me, because B-Dual Infantry 3 is pretty much a dead skill on Legendary Azura, and this is just a nice way to make her more combat ready. She is going to get a weapon refine. This is confirmed later on, as we'll see in a moment. Again, new memento events for Hero's Journey. These are always cute, and I love to see them, but not really much to talk about here. Next up is our Ephemeras, featuring Spring Fur notably, and I believe Bunny Veronica. Now, Bunny Veronica does not have a weapon refine yet, to my knowledge, but she does have the G-Dual Flying 3. This is a thing to pick up if you have G-Dual Flying 4 from Inigo and you wanted to tie it into 4 and pick up a range skill as well. With Fur, we have Harsh Command Plus and Attack Speed Solo 3, which unfortunately is not that impressive. Spring Fur herself is pretty good because with Wind Sweep, she has like an armor effective weapon and self null follow-up, or it might be just full null follow-up. I think it's actually full null follow-up. So Spring Fur is actually still good if you do already have her and wanted to actually just give her a merge, since her fodder is not that impressive at the end of the day. But yeah, this is probably one of the weaker Ephemera batches we've had recently, so it's probably not going to be too great for most of you. Next up is our preview of weapon refines. Now, if you were like me and you love healers, then what you would have noticed is after the most recent refines with Jomke, because these go in order, and obviously seasonals get skipped, such as Bridal Marth and Armor Elwood, for example, you would have thought, hey, Ethlyn isn't a seasonal, so she must be getting a refine. But unfortunately, she has the healer curse, and all 3 4-star healers, including Ethlyn, apparently are doomed to never get any sort of preference weapon refines. I have no idea why they do this, but Garen is next in line and Ethlyn is completely skipped. And yes, that is 500 grails for Ethlyn because I have a built Ethlyn. And I do love healers, and I have most of the healers built actually in some way, at least the calf healers. So if you're like me, you're basically drinking copium and crying in a corner that Ethlyn got skipped, and instead your 5-star healer Makoto gets a weapon preference weapon instead, who is probably foddered by most of you anyways for Flash, so whatever. Anyways, Garen is the GHB Grail unit here. We have Legendary Azura getting Weapon Refine, which is actually notable because no other dancers have gone Weapon Refine, so this can really be impressive. If they were tame on Grey Waves too, then probably maybe they'll be tame on what they do with Prayer Wheel. We'll see. And we have Shigure as well with his mom. We have NY Gunthra, whatever, and Sue, which has a version of Moligear, apparently. Quick Moligear. Can't really say what any of this will have. The interesting one here probably stands out as Legendary Azura and Garen. Legendary Azura, of course, with Prayer Wheel could have some interaction with Grey Waves, and Garen is not a dragon. He's an infantry res-hitting dude with Breath of Light already nullifying the dragon effectiveness, so I could see Garen being a pretty good refine here. Either way, as with always, I do cover these once the weapon refines drop in a bigger analysis video. Next up is Ether Raids with Dark Shrine getting upgraded. That's whatever. It's nice, but it's not really gonna change the game in any way. Mjolnir Strike, who cares? Additional Grail units, we know this. So Reeve and Dean. Reeve, again, is quite a good freebie, so giving him some merges could make him just a better combat unit. That's really good. Other changes, they're apparently fixing the Ishtar Resplendent bug where she had a different attack animation for no reason. They're just going to make that the same now. This is a one-liner that's really good for most of you, I think, or those of you that play the game more actively. Is easier to increase summoner support and ally support levels. Now, we don't know the details here, but just to give you some reference, summoner support took 80 fights to get from like C to S, and ally support took 60. So that's between 2 units. So it actually took quite a while. Summoner support could have been cut in half if the unit was previously summoner supported from 80 to 40. And the same idea with ally support from 60 to 30 if both units were engaged within 2 spaces. So I don't know what they're doing with this, but I do hope it's a good quality of life change to save a lot of time where you're trying to switch around summoner support, ally support. Notably very good for non-FEPAS users because FEPAS users can just swap around their summoner supports, I guess. Anyways, that pretty much covers the update, folks. And as I said, the most exciting thing with this update is going to be a new line of progression for everyone to aim towards and just improve their barracks overall and core favorite units. I'm super excited for this to the point where I'm going to begin working on the follow-up video. So you guys can look forward to that later in the day or tomorrow, depending on what part of the world you're in. Either way, that's it for me, guys. As always, thank you for watching. Smash that like button and sub. Feel free to come check me out on Twitch as I do tons of AR gameplay, summoner duels, theory crafting, and as much back and forth discussion as possible to make you a better FET gamer. See you in the next one. Much love. Peace.
It's over.